Hello.
Yay! Let's have a bit of a noisy hello. Let's hear everybody.
Hi everyone.
Hello,
Um,
everyone.
until we actually get started, you can all come on your microphones, say hi, be noisy, have fun, and
Show up and shine.
show up and shine. Exactly, exactly. So nice to see everybody. Gosh, we've got a lovely turnout. 50 of us here today. This is great. And more joining. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to introduce yourselves in the chat box. Let us know that you're here. Let us know why this talk about our inner critic is so interesting for you. Maybe tell us if you have named your inner critic. And what your relationship is like with your inner critic. Okay, so while you're doing that in the chat room, I want to welcome our panel. And Rica, I can see that your name has come up as Andre Lagrange, so I don't know why it's doing that, but maybe you can rename yourself so that we've actually got you with the right name. Okay, so our panel today are Angela Senosha and Dr. Rica Viljoen. I'm really excited to have them both here. They're both very passionate about this topic of inner critics and finding your own voice and being able to quieten down your inner critic so that you can actually speak, advocate for yourself, and show up and shine. My name is Briony Liber. I'm here with my inner critic. She's sitting about here, so I don't know if you can see her. And her name is Exasperated Sally. Okay, so we're here really to facilitate this conversation so that we can all get to understand why we have an inner critic, how we develop an inner critic, what our inner critic is trying to achieve, and most importantly, what I want you to go away with today is some ideas on how to develop curiosity and compassion for what your inner critic is trying to do, and some tools on how to quieten your inner critic so that you can find your own voice. Okay? So while we were sitting here, we were having a few tech challenges, and my inner critic, Exasperated Sally, was going, "Nya, nya, 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 this is going to be an epic failure. Don't know why you do this. Honestly, you really try to be way too big for your own boots. You're always trying to do these great things, but have you not learned yet that you can't do these things?" Okay? So that's my inner critic going, "Oh, Briony, really? You're trying to be too big. You're trying to take up too much space." Okay? And I'm quite amused when I hear that voice because it's a very familiar voice to me. But having learned a few tools around how to deal with this voice, it's very easy for me to kind of turn to Sally and say, "You know what, Sally? I've got this. All the people in this room are keen to be here. They've all shown up. If you look at the screen, Sally, you can see there are 59 people here. And it's okay. You can go outside. We don't need you in this room. I've got this and it's going to be good. But thank you for trying to keep me safe. I appreciate it. But I've got better tools than you've got for me right now." Okay. So that's a conversation that I have with my inner critic a lot. But it wasn't one that I learned to do very easily or a long time ago. It's really only a conversation that I learned to have probably about 5 or 6 years ago. But it's been the most important conversation for me. And so this is why we're having this panel session today. Because if there's one thing that you can go away with today, it's knowing that your inner critic is not you. It's not your voice. It's just a voice. And the moment you can separate your inner critic voice from your own, suddenly you are in a very powerful position. So I want to stop there And I want to ask Angela and Rica to introduce themselves and to maybe start off by saying what it is about this inner critic conversation that you are so passionate about, and how did you first start engaging with your own inner critics, and if you would like to, please introduce your inner critics to us as well. So Rica, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you so much, Briony, and hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you that I can be here with you, Angela, to be on the same panel with you. And it's so lovely seeing all of you here tonight. And I know it's only names, but in a way, I do feel a little bit of energy in this space as well. I would like to just acknowledge that it's seldom that I start in a panel where people will introduce their inner critic already. So it means some work have happened in this space, else that conversation wouldn't have occurred, Briony.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
I would like to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Yes, and it also speaks to a little bit of this group that can arguably be a bit vulnerable with each other, because that's the part that we seldom like to introduce. So I also would like to respect that.
Wonderful.
And in that, I'm then stepping into this space very respectfully and saying that I haven't been part of your journey, but I'm Rica. And Ole Ratu sometimes, if I'm my better self, and then Monopoly if I'm not. Now, Monopoly is spelled incorrectly, because that is when my words cannot come out, my words run dry, and there's no words, and friends that's close to me will call my inner critic Monopoly, not even something that's making sense much. And there's a figure to it where it's a lady without a mouth. So it's like mouthless. And that is when I give myself the hardest time ever, because I'm supposed to have words and now I cannot even speak. And my interest in inner critic work and shadow work really stems from a lifelong interest in understanding what gives people voice and what takes their voice away. And then what do we do to self if your voice are taken away, often not by your own choice, but because of the environment or the culture or the society or the age or whatever the dynamic, men in a boardroom, I'm not sure, but something that takes away voice. And then what is happening? How do we turn on ourselves? Became my field of study.
Beautiful.
Thank you that I can be here.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us from, I believe you're in Mozambique at the moment.
Yes.
And having a very busy week full of meetings. So thank you for making time for us.
Of course. Thank you.
Angela, would you like to introduce yourself and your inner critic and what it is about this topic that you're so passionate about?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Briony. Lovely to meet you, Rica, and I'm excited to be part of the panel with you. Good evening, ladies. This topic has bothered me for the longest of time, and I think it's such an important topic, and that's why I just can't wait to share with you. And to Rica's point, to just get a little bit vulnerable, because I often find that sometimes when someone tells their story, there might be pieces that you identify with. There might also be pieces where maybe you get to take something away and it helps you become a better person. If you look over here, my inner critic is sitting there because she's not shy to be visible. And her name is Feisty Felicia. and I want to giggle a bit because feisty she really is, because often the things that come out of Feisty Felicia are quite intense. Like, it's almost like when she says what she needs to say, there's zero consideration for Angela the person, right? And this topic is very interesting for me because besides the fact that I studied psychology and I've always been interested in why people do what they do, how they do, and maybe even a secret obsession with abnormal behavior, I'm finding that across the clients that I have, the office conversations that I have with my team, somehow this conversation always creeps in. And maybe it's in the form of a bit of a pep talk before you do something big, because when Feisty Felicia pitches, she really pitches when it matters. So she doesn't just make shows, she doesn't just make her presence felt when it's not important. She pops up when it really matters and where it's got the power to either disable you completely or even launch you. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation today.
Angela, that is such a beautiful segue into kind of when our inner critics pop up and different ways of looking at our inner critic. So our inner critic pops up the most when it really, really matters, okay? When we are about to get out of our comfort zone, when we're about to do something that scares us, when we're about to do something that is really not something that we know all that well, right? Okay? So we're at the edge of our comfort zone. And at the edge of our comfort zone is opportunity to fail, right? Nobody likes to fail, but that's what's out there. And our inner critic is waving this flag saying, don't go out there, it's really scary, okay? We don't want to fail, okay? So we know this is what our inner critic's doing. But Rica, I want to ask you if you can explain to us where this all comes from. Why, as adults, we have this voice that's telling us not to do things and what it's really trying to achieve.
Thank you, Briony. And I do like Angela to maybe add as well, please, because I think fields of study can be different, and then there's different theoretical underpinnings or even cultural underpinnings for that matter.
Yeah.
So I'm deeply anchored in the work of Carl Jung. And in Jungian psychology or assumption of humanity, I first would like to play a little bit with Angela. She said maybe a deep fascination with the abnormal. Carl Jung said, give me a normal person and I will cure him for you. So, yes, I think we all have that slight little bit of abnormality that makes us just stunningly beautiful. So, in my field of study, or the way in which my ontological style, how I make sense of the world at least, is that in both the psyche of male and females, there are energies. And there are masculine energy more, and I'm loosely translating, so I'm not speaking theoretically correct here. And there's feminine energy in both males and females. And as part of that, maybe a group like this, that's women in mining group, that's women in a world that has more masculine energy. Sometimes we need to be more masculine to fit in the collective rather than having the ability to embody exactly who I am and my femininity. But in that, there's also males that then sometimes need to suppress their feminine principle, or their anima, we call it in Jungian psychology, so that they also fit in. So the first point that I would like to leave is that the feminine side that give mothering, that plays, that sometimes flirts a little and give life and spirit, but also the wise old lady, sometimes are suppressed. The wisdom that come from sitting a long time with old people. It's all feminine energy. It's like the moon, you know, sometimes it's big and sometimes it's small. It's not like the sun that shines on you that's hard and dark, hard and fast, like a masculine energy every day, the same time there. In that field of study, we also believe that we all have an inner mother. And then the question is, that mother, your own voice, the part of you that mother you, not your children, but the part of you that mother self, how is she mothering? How good is she at mothering? And maybe that mother isn't a mother that motivates or care that much, but maybe that mother is critical. And in that, if we can just hear those, and I'm not speaking that you must become schizophrenic and hear voices, I'm speaking about the energies here in our head, when we can find ourselves or interrupt ourselves when we hear that voice that's saying, you don't belong here. Why don't you make the tea? Why don't you step up and write on the flip chart? If no one else take that in a boardroom, maybe we can shift that a little. And what if that mother to the self become as positive as we mother our children? Briony, I'm not sure, or Angela, maybe you can add.
Hugely useful, absolutely. And it's really giving a sense that when our inner critic is showing up, we're suppressing who we really are and our natural intuitive ways of being. Okay, and we're trying to fit in, and we're trying to not kind of stick out. And that takes a huge amount of energy. It's exhausting, and it's not really who we are. And the world loses who we really are when we're trying to hide ourselves. Angela, jump in and add to that.
While I was listening to you, Rica, I couldn't help but just play around with the thought that, so the inner critic is not something that just happens, right? You don't wake up today and it's happened. It comes from somewhere. And it, in my opinion, it has to do with your conditioning. And this is now to your point of mothering, right? How do you mother? So your conditioning, your experiences, the different roles that you play in society. Like if I had to unpack that a bit more, for me, it plays out as when I'm at home and I'm Bali's mom, I'm required to do certain things, and maybe my colleagues or my clients, if I told them about the things that I do when I'm at home, they probably wouldn't believe me. My colleagues would, my clients maybe not so much. And then it's also about the role that I play as the CEO of Positive Switch, because there's certain things that I need to do. So there's expectations from society in terms of how we need to behave. And then there's your preferences. And I wonder, maybe Rica, you might be able to unpack this for us. Does the inner critic live somewhere between those two realities? So who you are comfortable being versus the different roles that we play, because I'm pretty sure we all play more than one role here. And we've learned to do it with lockdown, right? Because when things were cut down, we had to do this and this and this and that. But could it maybe stem from a combination of these things? Let's just call it the psychology of your inner critic. I like that because it sounds catchy, but how does it come about? And maybe I'm also very happy to unpack how mine shows up.
Yes. So I guess let me start with a theoretical one, and then I'm also very happy to go there, Angela, and share how mine play out. So the theory behind it suggests that we have preferences and ways, and that if our ways, we are born with that. That's it's just a theoretical type of explanation, and people can see life through different lenses. Is what worked for me is to see it this way, in finding your own voice, is that maybe your preferred style of doing things were not necessarily appreciated by your parents. Or your parent was a single parent that have to work and 3 jobs even maybe, and send a person out of the family to school for the first time or to university for the first time. And their life energy was spent on providing and not necessarily the time to care. In psychology, there's a construct like there's a good enough mother. So we don't have to be perfect mothers. There's a good enough mother. And I would like to tell it to the people on this call today. That's my message that I would like to leave. Maybe you are good enough as a mother. But sometimes the little one needs something different from what the parent can provide. And we actually all have mother wounds. We all have that. And it's as part of our development. And then that voice starts to happen into the self. We first can copy the mother's voice. But we also have our own voice, our own mother, and what our assumptions is about mothering and what is good enough. So maybe the question that I would like to pose here is, where did you learn about what is good enough from whom? because that's typically where it shows. And then there's something that Briony said earlier, is if we then stress. So we don't, and I'm not sure if you have a pen in front of you, but maybe if you have, it will be great if you can make your signature quickly. Just do your signature if you have a pen. Yes. I hear some signatures being made. Good. Yes. And then please make your signature with your other hand.
Ooh.
And how does it feel? How does it look? What happened to self when you had to do that?
Awful.
Awful. You can also type in comments if you like. How did it feel? Weird. Yes, very weird. But it's still you, hey? It's not somebody else. It's just weird.
So, Rica, what I want to add to that is you said, who taught you what's good enough? Yeah. For me, my experience was who taught me what's not good enough.
Yes.
And I have so many of my coping mechanisms that are basically what my inner critic is teaching me to do to survive are based on not being good enough.
Good enough. Yes.
On taking too much space, on being too loud, on eating too much, on having too many needs. And I know that my inner critic has taught me to not express my needs because I'm too needy when I express my needs. And so as an adult, I've really struggled to express my needs, and that's caused all sorts of other issues. And that's the conversation the whole time, is exasperated Sally saying to me, "Oh, no, don't say that you need a hug, that you need a kiss, that you need some time out, because if you do that, you're not going to be good enough." And I think this is a really important thing, is that we learn as young people how to stay safe. And often that's how to stay unseen. And we bring that through in our lives. But what's safe as adults is very different to what's safe as a child. And the problems and challenges we experience as adults is very different to the challenges we experience as children. But our coping mechanisms don't change.
So Briony, when you talk about safety, right, as I was preparing and just thinking back to when did I start noticing this inner critic? Like, what were the flags for me? I think to the point of safety. When I was in varsity, I was in a very close-knit high school. I knew that I would be picked up from school and I would go home. I didn't have to worry about too much. And then I got to varsity and we were in that big hall. There was thousands of us going in different directions and I was completely overwhelmed. So I feel like my inner critic, Feisty Felicia, started showing up there. It's like, I'm not cool enough. And I talk about this openly. I'm sure back then it was a problem for me, where during my varsity years, I didn't really participate in the social life there because it was just too much. It was a bit much for me. And it also, I guess, talks to my personality and my own preferences, but nothing wrong with that. So the safety element for me was something that kind of started, or that birthed, or that got me aware that something is not right. So I started, whether it was comparing myself to the situation I was in, and I thought, am I going to make it here? So I kept away. I did what I needed to do. Yes, I interacted with people, but I did not volunteer to go into situations that put me front and center. Front and center is not my place. I don't enjoy it there. But the role that I play as Angela, the head of Positive Switch, requires me to stand up. Someone said, show up and shine. I can't remember who it was. It requires me to do that a lot, and I have to be pretty intentional about it. Not that I can't do it. But Feisty Felicia here is going, are you sure? Are you ready? You think you got this? So I wonder if we could maybe open up the conversation to the ladies that are here to just try and understand, for you, how does your inner critic show up? And I'm happy to give more examples on my end, because I think it's just so useful when you hear it from other people and you know that, I'm not alone. There's other people that actually go through this.
Yeah.
So I'll start. I mean, mine shows up in about 4 ways. I'll talk to the first one where it makes me doubt myself, right? And when I doubt myself, then my anxiety spikes. So as part of my preparation for this conversation, I wouldn't be speaking to you if I didn't have something valuable to say, right? But part of my prep, I started doubting. I was like, yo, is this really going to be value adding to the next person or not? So that's Feisty Felicia there. Then another popular way, and I'm going to stop after the second one, is pictures, right? I often say I suck at photos. I have a bunch of friends where we haven't connected in a while because of conflicting priorities. And when we do, 10 out of 10 times we will have to take a picture. And I have seen it happen. I have heard myself say it, and I'm aware of it, right? Because call it someone who's working on their inner critic, and I'll say, oh, I suck at pictures. And then when you look at those pictures, you can see that all of the ones that require editing and retakes, I'm probably the one who's doing something strange. But it has to do with the negative self-talk that I do before I take the picture, right? So it will take a couple of million takes before one picture comes out and I'm like, okay, let's work with that one. So that's something for me, even in my big age, where you know that it's just a picture, smile and wave and let's keep it moving. It's something that I battle with. So I'm really interested to hear from everybody who's here or anybody who's brave enough to jump out and talk to, how does your inner critic show up?
Well, Katlego resonates with you. She hates pictures and says hers shows up when she has to make big moves. Am I really worth the salary I want? Stuff like that. Katlego, do you want to come on and chat to us about that?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Loud and clear.
Yes. Hi, good evening.
Tell us about your inner critic.
Yeah, hey, she's very loud, hey. That's the problem. Like, very, very loud. It comes when, especially in the job market, you go looking for jobs and you apply, and you know that even if you do have a job currently, it's not worth your skills. The money, the salary that you're getting is not worth your skills, but you stick with it because you need the money. But at the end of the day, like, you don't have the guts to actually stand up and say, but if you just gave me an extra 2,000, you would get quite a lot of extra effort from me,
What's your inner critic trying to protect you from when you don't speak up for yourself?
Disappointment and feeling like you are, it's like it's telling you, you definitely do deserve that. I think my main problem is also guilt. I have a serious problem with guilt, because even when you do stand up for yourself, you have that guilt where, did I offend someone? Did I overstep my boundaries? Am I going too far with what my needs and wants? Am I being selfish? Those kind of things. It just really, it eats at you. And the worst is, it's almost like validation when you get that email that says, unfortunately, we have gone with another counterpart or another candidate for the job, Even when you know very well that this job, I could ace it. But when they say, unfortunately, like, see, this is why.
Okay, so Rica, have you got a tip for Katlego on how to quieten her inner critic? Oh, you're there.
Yes, yes, there I go. On the one hand, I think I just want to backtrack one step. Your question was, against what does that protect you? It's a very, very valuable question. I think that, the part of the psyche that often fights as well is the part that protects the wound. So the minute that you feel that reaction, I guess the best advice is not to suppress the voice, but to recognize the voice and then to follow the voice to the wound.
Yeah.
So often in corporate, in business, it's not possible because we don't want to fall apart just in a meeting. But if we can somehow put a self-talk that counter it in our head, that say, this is protecting me. Thank you for showing up. And you know what I teach people in Jungian coaching to do is to then find a space and dialogue with that part of yourself. So for example, if I go like this, and this can be in a coaching session, or you can do it on your own if you are skilled, you can say, hello, my guilt. I wonder why you have showed up and what are you here to teach me? And then you change your chair and you speak from your guilt. And guilt tell Rica, and then I'm not going to go into that before I tear up here. But if you do that a little bit to your own emotion, that you find that parts, that emotions that we suppress or judge as not good enough, as very wise counselors as to our woundedness.
Yeah.
I wonder what it can do for us.
Yeah, so what you're talking about here is naming your inner critic. So actually being able to go, this is my inner critic talking. This isn't necessarily me, it's my inner critic. Okay? And then being curious. Okay, so, okay, I'm curious. Why are you speaking up so much? What suddenly got you speaking so loudly? What is it that you're trying to protect me from? Okay? And then being compassionate around, wow, you're trying to protect me. I get that. And I really appreciate that. And I'm very compassionate towards your reasons for wanting to protect me. And then being able to say, but I don't need you here. I'm the adult in the room. And I have better coping skills to deal with this. And I want you to go and play in the garden, or go and read a book, or I invite you to go and have a sleep, and stop working so hard to protect me. And I'm not a psychologist, so my way of dealing with this is very kind of from a lay person's perspective. But one of the most useful books I've ever read is Playing Big by Tara Moore. And her work is really about being able to separate your inner critic from yourself and develop curiosity and compassion for your inner critic, knowing that it's just a small, younger part of you that just wants to stay safe. Angela, do you want to add to that?
I'm peeking at the comments and I can't help myself, right? I see one from Megan Jacobs. Megan says, I always downplay my skills and talents. And if someone compliments my looks, personality, or my work, I always end up just justifying it. And she also agrees with Katleho, who spoke about definitely mine shows up when I have to make big moves. Am I really worth the salary I want and stuff like that? So I just wanted to just acknowledge that. I mean, there's other comments that are going through. This is the one that's kind of stopped in front of me, and it's something that resonates with me as well. And from many conversations I've had, and I think I had a conversation with you recently, Briony, it's about sometimes you need to focus on the facts. So, Megan, when you are downplaying your skills and your talents, I don't know what you do, right? Whatever it is that you do, you wouldn't be doing it if you were not good enough, because
she's
I'm pretty
a lawyer and she's very talented.
There we go, Megan. So if you were not good at what you're doing, you would not be the lawyer that you are. You would not have been officially appointed and that kind of a thing. And sometimes it's going back to the facts, right? So what are the facts? For me to have been in this particular role, I needed to check a couple of boxes. These are the boxes related to the role that you are in, but you also bring your own flavor to it, right? It's your interpersonal skill. It's the things that make you Megan. And that's why you are in this role. And I want to challenge you to be a bit more intentional about that, because you would not be there if you were not the right person for the role. So step into it. I could also use a sip of my own medication, so I take that with with a pinch of salt. But for me, it also then extends to, there's humility and then there's arrogance. And Feisty Felicia is always in my ear about, are you being arrogant? You're being arrogant again. Because oftentimes I find myself in spaces where you need to introduce yourself and the business that you run, what it is that you do, how do you help people. Part of that introduction talks to some of the successes, the wins that we've had. I struggle with that. Brian is like, Angela, can you give me a brief bio? And I'm like, oh, B. Okay, let's see, what do I put in it? And how I'm learning to deal with that is to say, what are the facts? Yes, these are the facts. This is who I am. This is what's happened. This is what's been amazing. Because sometimes you actually need to own it. You work so hard to downplay these achievements and these successes that you've had. And for me, this one of the biggest struggles that I grapple with is this humility versus arrogance. It's played out again recently when we were away for an award ceremony and you're sitting with your peers or fellow nominees and they introduce themselves. The intros are chalk and cheese. Someone stands up and says, my name is so and I am what, I'm a disruptor and I do this and I do that. Rightfully so, because I can't take away from how the person sees themselves, right? Because it's based on their personal experience. And then it gets to me and I'm going, sure, I'm Angela and I'm an HR practitioner by trade. And then I skim on all of those other things that I've done well. It doesn't serve you. So we need to find a way to find our voice and be comfortable in sharing those things. I just had to, because
I'm so glad you said that. And this is a perfect opportunity to take 15 minutes, okay? And maybe all of us do a round of saying what the facts are, okay? I don't know if you know the Google I Am Remarkable program. It's a program that's really all about helping women advocate for themselves. And the whole philosophy behind the program is we often don't advocate for ourselves because we get caught in our emotions, and our emotions are part of our subconscious, and we stop advocating for ourselves because we feel ashamed, we feel like we're being arrogant, we feel like we're not being humble, and so we just don't speak up for ourselves. And the antidote to that, according to them, and which I absolutely agree with, is speaking to the facts. Nobody can dispute facts. Facts are not emotional, they are there, they're tangible. And so in this program, they get everybody to practice saying, I am remarkable because of this fact, and this fact, and this fact. So I want to ask that maybe everybody has a chance of writing in the comments, and maybe a few people come onto screen, and say, I am remarkable for this fact. Okay? It's a really beautiful way to advocate for yourself and to quieten your inner critic and find your own voice. Okay? So, who wants to start? In fact, let's ask Megan. Megan, come on screen and tell us why you're remarkable. We just want one fact.
Oh, I think my inner critic is preventing me from distinguishing the facts from not facts, I guess.
Okay, so tell us something that you've done in the last year that you can quantify.
I started my job as an associate at Falcon and Hume Attorneys. And as Angela mentioned, I've stepped into my role and I'm moving towards gaining my experience in the mining industry, which is exactly what I want.
Okay, so phrase that as I am remarkable because.
I am remarkable because I am an associate at Falcon and Hume Attorneys.
Yay! How awesome is that? But also notice how uncomfortable it is to say, I'm remarkable. I own the fact that I'm remarkable. Okay?
Yeah.
I really want to encourage you to practice that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on screen. It's so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Who else would like to have a go at saying they are remarkable on screen? Or in the chat?
Hi, Briony.
Oh, hello. Hey, Viljoen, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Very well, thank you.
I wanted to say it even though I wrote them in the chat because I was struggling with it just today. So I want to say I am remarkable because I'm a great speaker. And I am saying that because I guess I proved myself to the office because they asked me, they didn't ask me, they told me. Oh, quite overwhelming. They told me that I will be the MC for the technical review that we'll be having in July.
Wow!
So I was like, thank you. So I was battling that. I was like, why are they saying this? Why am I chosen out of everyone? So I guess I'm a great speaker. So that's why I said it. Still trying to believe it. Yeah.
Okay. So your job before you MC that event is to work on believing it. Okay?
Yes.
And
Yes.
to really be able to see your inner critic when she's saying, ooh, I don't think I'm kind of the person for this. And find the facts for yourself, okay? So start writing down all the facts of what makes you a great speaker. And maybe even asking people, what is it about me that has encouraged you to invite me to do this MC job? Okay? Gather the facts for yourself. And well done. Big, big, big.
Thank you.
Well done. All right. Look how we're seeing some of these I'm remarkable comments in the chat. Angela, how cool is this? You're on mute. Excellent. Feliciwe, tell us why you're remarkable.
Feliciwe. Yes, I am remarkable. I'm not sure if you can see this award.
Oh, we gave you an award. What's it for? What's it for?
Yes, I got an award in recognition of extraordinary leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Wow.
So I feel proud of myself.
You absolutely should. Well done. Fantastic. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Feliciwe, and well done. Very proud of you. Okay, so let's come back to our panel. Rica, you've disappeared. Where are you? Rica, have we lost you? Okay, I'm going to go back to Angela. Angela, did we achieve what you wanted out of that?
We did. And I wonder if we can't do more of it, because we can clearly see that a lot of us want to hold back from how remarkable we are. And I mean, Briony, you're the one that's watching us and, you know, watching the time so that we don't go over. But I think it's just so amazing to see people acknowledging the things that they are remarkable for.
Okay, so what I want to suggest is we break out into some breakout rooms with 3 or 4 people per room, and that you each have 5 minutes to introduce your inner critic to each other, and also each of you make at least one statement starting with, I am remarkable because. Okay? How does that sound, Angela?
Sorry, I missed a bit of that. My connection is not fantastic. So we're introducing our inner critics and then?
Yeah. Introducing our inner critics. Okay. So if you've got a name for your inner critic, just saying, want to introduce you. This is my inner critic. Her name is whatever. And one of the things I hear her say all the time is X. And then say, but I know that I'm remarkable because. Okay. Everybody comfortable with that? Just give us a show of reactions if you're comfortable with that and you heard the instructions, because I'm going to set up breakout rooms. Okay, I can see so many people disappearing at the thought that there's a breakout room activity. Don't leave us. This will be fun. Okay. Right, so I've got the rooms ready. I'm sending you off. You're going to have 15 minutes, and then I'm going to bring you back to the room and we'll finish the panel discussion, okay? Enjoy your chat. Lovely to see you all coming back. So ladies, how was that? Avela, I see you. How was that for you?
Funny. No, it was really awesome because all of us, we didn't have a name for our inner critic. And also what I've observed from Trisha and Paul, the way saying that they didn't know that it was the inner critic, of which from Paul, it was something that was so positive out of it. And then for Trish, it was something that was like, so, like, I didn't know about it. So now I need to really get to and identify what's my inner critic. So I was just giving them an example that is, I read this course last year, so that's when I actually identify my inner critic, and now how I silence my inner critic. Now there was even showing them that my inner critic was here, it was here, I was there, and then all of a sudden now things have changed. I know how to silence it, and I always like say that you gonna listen to me now. So that thing of saying that show up and shine, it's like I'm doing it basically because I'm silencing my inner critic. So we're just advising each other, how do we silence our inner critic and say that, you know what, you're going to listen to me if you come negative towards me. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you, Avela. Anybody else want to share what it was like for them in their room? Just a quick share. Otherwise, I'm going to pick on this year's mentee group.
I'd like to share, Amantla.
Yay, Amantla, thank you.
Alright, with myself, I was with Khosiame, Nongebo, and Pilisiwe. So I shared that I'm remarkable because of my interpersonal skills, that I'm able to, most of the time, engage with the most difficult people in the organization, or people that are claimed to be difficult. So I find that I'm able to get through to such people. And the other two ladies also alluded to their interpersonal skills as well as leadership skills. Khosiame alluded to her emotional intelligence to say that she's well aware of her surroundings, which obviously leads into being well equipped to dealing with people. So it was a beautiful exchange because we went into the discussion. I work for Sibanye, so we had a chat a bit about the strike that's going on. So it was nice to actually see that myself and Khosiame were on different sides of the table. So I'm the one asking for the increase, and she's the one that's basically mediating the increase. So yes, it was a beautiful exchange around that. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Tabile, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I do. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, can hear you.
Let me just lower my hand. Okay, cool. So I was in a room with Jenny and Humbu, right? So at first start with Humbu. So she calls her inner critic the drawback queen, and the reason for that is because she always draws a bag, and she's always kind of shy and always showing up asking questions about the decisions that she's about to make, So it's more like the inner critic that's telling her that, no, you need to kind of relax and keep quiet because you're not really good enough for this. So that's basically her inner critic. And then we went through that and spoke about it. But one thing that she really mentioned also is that she's very remarkable, and in what that has to do with, delivering in excellence. And she also showed one of her awards that she actually got. And and yeah, and also a COO actually chose her to kind of work in the region and do all these great stuff she was explaining, and I was like, yo, I'm really proud. She also actually had to take it out, and she was showing us, and then I was like, yeah, no, these women are really showing up and shining. So yeah, that's that. And then there's also Jenny. So Jenny, she didn't have a name, but she thinks she might have one before the end of the meeting. But usually with her inner critic, she says that her inner critic is usually misleading, right? So even when she's like really focused and then she wants to do great, it's always just telling her like totally different things. So it's like it's clouding her of some sort. And then only when things are done, that's when she actually realizes that she had, wasted time where she could have actually avoided that. But then that's basically her inner critic. And then there's just me. And before there's me,
Wait,
there's
stop.
also the remarkable her.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Can you please take that word just out of that sentence and say that all again? We don't minimize ourselves by saying, oh, it's just me.
Okay, cool. So before I continue, I want to say, what is it that she thinks is remarkable about her, right? One of the things she actually mentioned is that she had introduced women's PPE where she works. So she currently works for Richard's Base Minerals. So basically, that's one of the things that also got us talking, because I was asking her what type of, women PPE do they have in their site, so that we can also try to introduce it in our site as well. So yeah, there's that one for Jenny. And then there's me.
Yay!
Yes. So I did introduce my inner critic, right? So my one, I call her darkness. And I was saying that she's not really dark, where it's like just black and just like that. But then it's darkness mostly because she's very bold, right? My inner critic can be in like two. It's either she's the person that actually makes me feel, or the person that actually, takes me up. So the bold part of my inner critic really is the one that tells me to go for it whenever I want it. So as you can see, I'm very outspoken. I just love talking, right? She's the one who's always saying, go woman, you really got to do this, put in more energy. But then there's also my inner critic that usually would be, as much as bold she is, in certain situations, she's literally thinking about the past. And then the past is the one that triggers everything else basically to not go as per normal. And then that's when my entire mood, instead of just doing anything at all, then my mood will just go down and I don't do anything. And then suddenly it just changes. So that's basically my inner critic. So it could either be part of my success, or it could be either be part of my mood changer, and not in a good way, but also in a bad way. And then I said that I'm remarkable because I believe that I am the best presenter I've ever met in my life. And also I am competing with me. And so basically that's what I think I'm remarkable with. And yeah, I actually had a great group. We even gave each other numbers because we want to do a lot of stuff. So,
good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tabile. Thank you for showing up and shining, and for taking up space, and for being remarkable.
Thank you too.
Okay, so we have got 12 minutes left. So I want to ask our panel if we can open up for some questions. And while we're waiting for anybody who wants to ask a question, Angela and Rica, if you can maybe kind of give us some closing kind of thoughts on our inner critics, and how to quieten them, how to be compassionate towards them, and how to bring our voices loudly and proudly to the table.
Angela, would you like to go?
Rica, you have the floor. You go.
Okay. So maybe I think if I can ask you to reflect back on that exercise with your hands, and that you have what you just presented, the remarkable part of you, but part of self is also the other hand that doesn't look elegant, that we must concentrate on, that can hurt people, that can sometimes not even write. That's also part of self. And to the inner critic is as silly as I'm telling you, because you are right-handed, you suck at writing with your left hand. It's as silly as that. So if we catch each other doing that, I think we remember this exercise. It's just the other part. You are absolutely beautiful at other things, and I would like to wrap up with a very, very short story that I like to tell. Is of the farmer went to business school, and he had 3 animals. It was a duck, a sheep, and a goat. And the farmer decided to transfer the knowledge that he have learned. He taught them how to multi-skill. And he told them in a month and a day, they are going to do a big race. They are going to do triathlon, running, climbing trees, and swimming. And the little duck was so beautiful. She copied everything diligent, everything that he taught her. She did the SWOT analysis. She realized she can swim well, but she cannot run and she cannot climb trees. So for a month and a day, she practiced running and climbing trees while the other animal grew fat. The day of a big race came, and the farmer said, ready, steady, go. And the first leg was the swimming, and this duck was so proud of herself because swim she could. And she jumped into the water with the most elegant of a bow in the water. And she hit the water and drowned dead. It's a terrible story. I have terrible stories. From running and climbing trees, she hurt the fleeces between her little toes so much that she couldn't swim anymore. Moral of the story, you cannot try to be who you are not so hard that you cannot be who you are anymore.
Wow.
So what I'm saying with that is we all have keep the part of you that's remarkable. Get rid of the part of you that tell you are not good enough in other spaces. If you are high enough in the organization, appoint people around you to do that, but not average you out to a degree where you are like the duck where you just drown because you are putting your effort in the 3% that doesn't make you good. Focus on the parts that makes you remarkable.
That is a story that everybody is going to remember forever. It was not how I thought it was going to go. It was even better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. I think, Briony, there are a couple of points that I've put down just in terms of how I think it will be useful to the ladies on this call in terms of how to silence or quieten your inner critic. First and foremost, you need to acknowledge her. Yes? Because if you don't acknowledge her, she doesn't go away. She comes in weird and wonderful ways. Know that she's there, right? And then for me, what I found useful is that oftentimes if you are able to explain, or if you have an idea of what good looks like, because she often creeps in with that negative self-talk around why you can't do this or why you can't do that. But when you know what good looks like, and let's be realistic, guys, perfection doesn't exist. Being brave is important because it means that you took the step, you tried, and in the trying, you will either figure out, oh, I can actually do this, or you will say, okay, next time I'm going to do this differently, right? So it's the understanding what good looks like, being brave, but also then as part of exercising the self-compassion, how do you then ensure that you do something about the gaps that you are aware of? So you will know what you're great at and what you're not so great at. And if it's something that you want to continue pursuing, do something about it. Go and figure out how to get better at it so that you can enjoy it even more. And then for me, I was chatting to Megan, Valencia, and Yolanda, and I was saying, It ties in very closely with good mental health practices. It's important that you are able to check in with yourself regularly. I did that yesterday with a colleague at a client, and in doing it, it's amazing how it just prepped me up because you would think that you always have to do more, you got to do better. But in taking stock of what's happened over the past few months, quite a lot has happened and it's been good. And I'm happy with whatever it is that has happened. And then the importance of your support structure. So Rica spoke about something about the mother you, was it the mother you, what did you say, Rica? You spoke about, the place where you learn what you need to learn from. So for me, my support structure is very, very important because that's where I go when I need to ugly cry. That's where I go when I've done really well and I'm looking to celebrate with my tribe or my people or whatever you call them. But it's also the safe space where you are able to get constructive feedback, on what's working, what doesn't work, how you improve. It's where you can be comfortable to receive that feedback. And if you will, I just want to read something quickly to you that someone sent to me as part of my research into the topic. And this is how it reads. My inner critic has really leveled up in manipulating me as of late. She doesn't critique me on everything I do, only on the things that truly bother me in that time. This results in me thinking I have made certain decisions about myself until the going gets tough, and then it takes over when I'm at my lowest. My inner critic is aware that I am stronger than her, so she has to be strategic about the way she brings forth her judgment. Not everything works the same as it did 6 months ago. When I evolve beyond my old self, she is forced to evolve too. I'd like to think that I have met with her less and less recently, and I have acknowledged her comments less too. And in future, I hope to help my inner critic become useful in the sense that her critiques are constructive and they seem to help me grow rather than to belittle me. So ladies, acknowledge her.
Thank you, Angela. Acknowledge her, be curious about her, have compassion for her. She's a part of you, so you're having curiosity and compassion for yourself as well. When we direct a lot of hostile energy towards our inner critic, we enter a losing battle. Okay? That's not my quote, that's from Sharon Salzberg. But the point of it is so often we say, well, I'm just going to fight with that inner critic and I'm going to throw her out the room and she's so horrible and I don't want to swear, but F her, okay? We get really angry and ugly towards our inner critics. But all we're doing when we do that is getting angry and ugly towards ourselves, okay? And when you can imagine your inner critic as a little girl who's scared, and she just wants you to stay safe, and you can understand that all she wants is for you to stay safe, it becomes a lot easier to feel compassionate towards her. Okay? So I also have a quote. This is from Tara Moore. Liberating yourself depends on a very simple insight. You are not the critical voice. You are the person aware of the critical voice. You are the person feeling perplexed by it, or bummed out by it, or believing it. You are the person trying to understand it, and work with it, and get rid of it. You are the entity that is hearing the voice. The critic is not the core of you. The core of you is you, your aspirations, your wisdom. Please remember that, ladies. Separate your inner critic by naming her, giving her a personality, a character, being able to imagine her, have a conversation with her. Recognize that she is a part of you, but she is not you. You are you. And the moment you're curious about your thoughts, the magic starts to happen, because you are not your thoughts. And sometimes our brains play very tricky tricks on us, and they give us thoughts to try and keep us safe, okay? But you have beautiful coping mechanisms to look after yourself. And next month, we're going to be doing a session on our inner mentor. Okay? So next month, we're going to be giving space to our inner mentor, our future version of ourselves, who's wise, who's creative, who's calm, who's been where you want to go. She knows all the answers, and she is also part of you. Okay? So we've worked today, and there's so much work we could do on quietening our inner critics. Next month, we're going to do a little bit on how to raise the voice of our inner mentor. Okay? Ladies, I want to thank you for being here. Angela and Rica, I really want to thank you for your time. You have been absolutely wonderful. I believe that we could talk about this for weeks and months and years and still not scratch the surface of it. But I really think that the group that's been here with us today has heard and has experienced some magic. And I really want to see LinkedIn flooded tomorrow with photographs of all the awards that everybody seems to have in this group, because we heard about several awards. Statements around how remarkable you are. Maybe talking a little bit about what you've learned on how to quieten your inner critic. And I hope you all network with each other. You've all had the opportunity to meet a few people in your breakout rooms. So build up your support system with each other. Keep in contact, build your network, and come back again next month. And before we finish off, tomorrow is International Women in Mining Day. So happy International Women in Mining Day to all of you. Please celebrate yourselves. You're all amazing. And we will see you at our next session, second Tuesday of July. All right, I've recorded the session. We'll put it up so that you can access it. It's been amazing. Thank you for being here. Let's have a noisy exit. So all of you put your microphones on and let us say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you. It was a great session.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.